Hey, how's it going? It's Jeff Lerner here, and I want to talk about one of the biggest challenges that I see for people dealing with when they're trying to get something going in their lives. One of the biggest challenges that I see people struggling with, and that we end up talking about on our coaching calls, is the way people perceive time. And it doesn't show up as people saying, well, this is how I perceive time. It shows up as people talking about a lot of other things they perceive, but when you trace them back, you get to the realization that it's actually about how we perceive time, and in this case, kind of how we misperceive time. Now, first of all, this is very human. This doesn't mean something's wrong with people, or if you're an entrepreneur and you relate to this or what I'm about to say, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It's actually really good to know. This is how human beings perceive time when they're under any sort of stress or they're going through any sort of change process, that we actually perceive time, or we experience time at a much slower pace. And there's real clinical research on this. They actually did a meta study, which means a study of studies of people with depression, people with traumatic life events, people going through transitions. And they basically realized that when we're going through hard things, we feel time more deeply. The way this shows up is that hard things feel harder because they also feel hard for longer, or they feel like they're slower to change or slower to improve. Whereas as they say, we all know this, time flies when you're having fun, right? So we're no stranger to this idea, but it's clinically proven that whenever you're depressed or you're just waiting on a result, that waiting for something to happen has actual psychological similarities to being depressed, and that the way we perceive time changes. And so hard things feel like you're never going to come out of them, like they're insurmountable, like these challenges are so extreme, but a lot of it is just because of the way you're perceiving time. And so I say this to you, I say this to my clients, to say, don't let your mind trick you into thinking things are harder than they are, not to make things mentally worse than they actually are. And this perception of time is something that our mind does that just naturally makes things seem so much worse than they are. And if you're aware of it, you can start to, remind yourself in these moments. You can start, it's called cognitive restructuring. You come up with these little sort of pegs you can come back to in your mind to go, don't let that thought run away with itself, because actually what I'm experiencing right now is a perceived slowdown of time that's making hard things feel harder. So anytime you're waiting on a result, especially when you're having to exert under the weight of the weight, like when you're physically the one doing the work to start a new business, under the weight of the weight. I like that. I don't think I've ever said that before, but I'm gonna stick with it. The heaviness of time when you're waiting on a result, and especially when the people around you are doubting you, they're judging you, they're criticizing you, and talk about tricks our mind plays. We might think that they're doubting us and judging us more than they actually are, but that's probably a topic for another video. But anytime you're under the weight of the weight, just remember that your mind is playing a trick on you to make the hard things seem harder by making time feel slower. And at its extremes, this is actually called the matrix effect. Like if you've been in an accident or had some kind of a trauma and you go back and replay it in your mind and you literally can see it like frame by frame. It's like the movie The Matrix when they slow down the fight scenes, but that's something that the mind does. But when you're in an interval of waiting, then you actually experience it in real time, not just in recollection. And so all that to say, it takes time to build things. It takes time to do things well. They say in business, slow up, slow down. If you're trying to start a business, don't be so eager for a rapid result, because the longer your result takes to achieve, statistically, the longer your results are likely to stick or to continue to grow. Slow up, slow down. But also remember that within that time, it's going to feel like even twice as long because of this principle. So hey, that's my encouragement to you. If you're under the weight of the weight right now, to see it through, stick with it, and don't let your mind be your worst enemy and making it feel like it's even harder than it really is. All right? Thanks so much. Let me know below if you've ever experienced anything like this in life, in business, in relationships, whatever. And I'll see you on the next video. Take care.